That's good. Excellent. All right, so we're starting the recording, and now I can't get that part back up again. There we go. All right, and where is the chats?
I mean, mine's on the bottom.
Aha, there we go. There's from Peter McCartt. We have a chat function from Peter McCartt. I'm going to move that over to the side. Thank you, Peter, for your chatting. All right.
Doing a lot of chatting already this morning. A lot of good stuff going on.
Well, yeah, and this has been a, dealing with the technology stuff is interesting, guys. So I don't know how many of you do these kind of webinar things, but there's definitely an interesting process associated with it. And we have yet one more person who's joined us, I believe. Hello, I can't see who you are. Someone's here. Well, hello? Number 6. I can't see who you are, so sorry. Doesn't show up the names, which is kind of funny. All right, well, we're going to get started then, guys, okay? And
yeah, please go right ahead.
There's a bunch of things that the conversations can go, and as folks have input, if you could type the chat function, which should be on the side of your computer somewhere, if you can find it. We'll also deal with chats, and then if you have background noises, if you can please mute yourself. Otherwise, I believe I can mute you, but I'd rather keep it open in case you'd like to ask anyone questions. We'll do that too. So here we go. First, thank you so much, Chris and Dana, for joining us today. Sorry, Dana, I'm blocking your view, your picture here.
All right, don't worry about it.
But it's a pleasure to have you guys. It's really an honor, and I've had the pleasure of working with both of you. And we're going to share some of that experience and learning that you've had with folks today on other aspects. We're also going to have some discussion about where you are personally and what happened to your own personal experiences and the choices you made on electric vehicles, because I think that's really great to share with folks. We're then going to go into a little bit of discussion about some clean transportation strategy and where we're at. Somewhere along the line, we're going to ask Peter to jump in. And Peter, if that's okay with you, we'll wait a little bit down the line to make that happen. Is that okay?
Sounds good. Sounds perfect. Thank you.
Great. And we'll have strategy for everyone that's on the line, talking about what your needs are and what you believe is going to move Westchester to this next level. We'll talk about the fleets and charging station grants, some of the ones that are out there and ones that are still coming up, and some options that you guys will have, as well as the pending VW settlement grant money and what's still happening with that or not. And in particular, I'd really like to organize out of this meeting, getting ready for the fall and what our strategy should be to reach out more people and involve them in this process. So without further ado, for those who haven't seen it, I highly urge you to watch this video, which takes a lot of information that we've been compiling, makes it fun, entertaining, interesting. It was done, a group of high school students did this, Why Drive Electric? It gives you a lot of background information that pays off. And the thing I thought that was most powerful from our group was this quote from the winner of the high school EV video contest. So this is a now graduated high school student who said that, oops, sorry about that. You are the master of your own destiny. The future of humanity will be determined in the next few years. If we act now, those actions will pay off. And every action we take inspires someone else. I mean, this is from an 18-year-old kid, right? And it's just, I thought it was just, every time I read it, I get chills. So just I think it's a great thing for us all to keep in mind that even though some of the actions, sometimes we wonder what we're doing and how we're doing it, it's every little bit that really makes a big difference. All right, onward. Oops, let's see if this is going to let me. There we go. So how fast can we change? I've shared this with a couple of you folks, but in case you haven't seen this, this was in 1900, over 100 years ago in New York City, all these horse and buggies. And where is the one car? There it is. 13 years later, that's all, 13 years, which is about how much time UN scientists tell us we have for the climate change, 12, 13 years, right? All cars, one horse. So when we become disenchanted, we become wondering how we can do all this, how we can get everything accomplished that we need to, that we want to. Let's keep this in mind, guys. We've done it before. We've done it in many different ways. This is one blatant example with transportation, and clearly it's the type of thing that we need to replicate with electric vehicles today, and we can, and we will if we decide we want to. All right. So if you have any questions, issues, needs, goals, ideas, please tap into the chat box or speak up, and we'll take that as we go, always. Just some real quick background stuff. There's 11 million cars and light-duty trucks in New York State. It's cost us $25 billion, all of us. Transportation is the largest source of greenhouse gases. One of the things that New York City came out, and I think, Peter, you also documented last time, was that electric vehicles are now the cheapest options for fleets. And the total cost of ownership of electric vehicles can be far cheaper than with all electrics than for any other source, any other gas piece. In Westchester County right now, we have 650,000 registered motor vehicles. 26,000 of them are commercial. This is the task in front of us. How do we move these vehicles off of fossil fuels, off of gasoline to electric? And we've been making progress. So just to give you a sense, when we started the program in 2016, there were 1,100 vehicles. We doubled that to 2,200 in 2017. We hit 4,000 at the end of 2018, and that's the kind of exponential growth that we need to just keep doubling and doubling and doubling. 4,000 still a small percentage compared to the 650,000, but just like the laptops, just like our smartphones that came along and nobody had them, and then everybody had them, that's what we need to do with electric vehicles. And to give you a sense, these are who has electric vehicles around the state, the number of EVs per 1,000. And when you take a look, this first one is plug-in electric vehicles, hybrids. And Suffolk County and Tompkins County is pretty far ahead there. Westchester is about halfway or so. But the interesting thing to me is that when you take a look at battery electric, just pure electric vehicles, which is where the future is, what we see is that Westchester County is all the way out here leading far in advance of everybody else with over 2.5 electric vehicles per 1,000 people. So systematically, we're starting to lead the way, guys, and we got to keep this momentum going. One more quick thing for everybody is just as Chris and Dana and the county have taken advantage of these ZEV grants, the deadline for $5,000 for an electric vehicle that goes more than 50 miles right now is next week, July 26th. I'll make that really big. I know a couple of municipalities are working on getting their EV purchases in. You have to have it on the street. You can do it as either a purchase, or you can do it as the town of Ossining did as a lease. And as long as it's a 3-year lease, zero capital outlay gets you 0 first-year fiscal impact with a new electric vehicle. And you can get that happen even potentially in the next week. Or you can want to be folks like we're going to hear about today with Bedford and some others that also got ZEV grants. And this one is relatively simple for electric vehicles. Again, the deadline is this coming, is it Thursday the 26th? Anyway, this coming next week, the 26th. Yeah. All right, but today, our stars. Yay, we're going to hear. Our 2 stars. Please excuse, again, the little piece here. I'm going to, let's see, Dana, we're going to have you up front. And I wonder, can I make you big? Let's see if I can make you big. Hopefully I can make you big. Here we go. We're going to make you big.
Don't make me big because I want you to put my little PowerPoint up.
But, okay.
Yeah.
Can you do that? I can indeed. Hopefully I can.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
Say that we started working with Ron and Earthkind and Sustainable Westchester a few years ago. I think we started with did we start with the Leaf or did we start with the charging stations? I can't actually remember now.
I don't remember either. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it was the Leaf though.
The Leaf, and we actually purchased a Leaf. I think the estimated range at that point was 150 miles.
I think it was less than that for the one you got. It was a couple of years ago now.
So that's for that. And the great story that some of you may have heard is that we gave it to our building inspector and he quit. So you got to be careful. You really do need to think about, the use of, who's driving the car. And the reason he quit is because he said he couldn't drive around doing his inspections in the day get home because he was assigned a car to take home and respond to any fire emergencies. He's also our fire inspector, without being able to charge at home, and it wasn't enough range, and the 150 wasn't real if he was playing a serious radio and had the AC going, etc. So, you know, there were definitely some challenges. We have since, and so at the same time as we purchased the first lease with all of the, and we did that lease so that we could not have that an impact that first year. I think we were trying to take advantage of any of the rebates, including there was a federal rebate, which I believe the leasing company benefited from. Since then, we've leased a couple of other vehicles, and we've used the same leasing company, and we've had them pass along a portion of the benefit. So in the end, we still end up getting an additional benefit, in, as well as we're leasing it and spreading out the payments over time. So this was when we were putting in one of our charging stations. We did 3 charging stations in that first year when we had the ZEV rebate in our parks. This park happens to also be at our at Metro North train station. And I'm going to show you a little video at the end because I think that it's a feel-good video that I took at the last Earth. This was an Earth Day a year ago, and our Earth Day this year, I caught a guy charging his car there right after Earth Day was over, and I want to show you that video at the end. So anyway, we did pretty well. We didn't have a lot of out-of-pocket. We did have to upgrade infrastructure to put these charging stations in. They're all level 2 charging stations and have 2 vehicle accessibility. Actually, what's nice about this one is even though we put it facing, the way that it's facing is into our town parking lot. We have a little parking strip for town vehicles, I mean, not town vehicles, but for the public to utilize our parks. And the other side is the train station parking. I've used it a number of times now from the other side, and you know, the hose reaches and it doesn't matter. So there's really 4 spots now where you can access those 2 chargers from. So that's one of our parks, and then we put another one in another park right near one of our art centers, and then that was at the same time. We did all 3 at the same time, and we utilized we got the $16,000 grant, and we put in a $4,000 match for each of them. And then the last one is, you can go to the next slide, at Ryder Park, which is near our business strip in the town. So it's not right there, but it's pretty close. There's a playground there. There are ball fields there. There's a pavilion there. So we thought that would, and we also have our electric vehicles that we've been charging there as well. And since I got mine, I sometimes pick up the town car and leave my personal vehicle there to charge while I'm doing town business. So that's another outside benefit. Right, so this was, again, purchased for the building inspector, and then subsequently, when he decided he couldn't deal with it anymore, our senior nutrition program was down a car. They used it, and I'm still on that slide, yeah. And also our parks department used it, and now I've been using it just to get around and for town business. And we did get a $5,000 rebate from the ZEV program.
Yeah, and the great part I thought about that was that with the lease that you got, the $5,000 rebate from the ZEV grant basically covered the first year of the lease, so you had a 0 fiscal impact that first year, and I thought that was really great. And I thought the other thing was, yeah, the sharing of the tax credit, which most municipalities can't get, by having the lease as part of that. And by the way, there's a diverse opinion from some legal sources about leases. So your town has been very amenable to those, and a bunch of others are, and then some others think that they can't. So at some point, maybe we can have the controller or someone just make it clear that leases are fine for towns to do this with, or municipalities to do this with, because there's some people believe they can't do leases. And by doing a lease, you were able to get that tax credit benefit, part of it passed along to you, which I thought was great.
Right, and so you can go to the next one, the next slide. The Ford Fusion Energy, which is a plug-in hybrid, and this was what our building inspector ended up using. And again, then we shared the leaf around. With this, we wanted to take advantage of the federal tax rebate, and and also get the state rebate. But the state rebate was supposedly only attached to if you were going to own the car. So we asked the state, well, can we get the ZEV rebate if we do a lease to own, and we, buy it for $1 at the end? And after looking into it, they said, okay. So that's how we were able to get the ZEV rebate and still do the lease and still get, I think it was an additional $1,000 benefit. Let me just see, I have my notes here. Be sure that it was an additional $1,000 pass through the leasing company from the federal rebate that they would enjoy. And that, again, ended up taking down the cost of what was a $32,000 car, I think, by another $3,500 above that. We ended up saving that off the original cost of the car. And by the way, our building inspector loves it. He quit, but he came back. We lured him back. Then he was still a very good deal, and we didn't want to lose him.
You did price him with more mileage?
No, it's a hybrid. It's a hybrid, so he's always got
fair enough.
backup now. But he loves the car, and he does plug it in, and I think it gets like 60 miles per gallon anyway. In addition to being able to plug in and run on you don't have to use as much gas, obviously. So, and then our senior program, we had a couple of Ford Transit Connects that one of them got into an accident, the other one, the door didn't work anymore. So we looked into electric vehicles for our senior program, and we happened to find this minivan, the Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid. So we purchased that using the OGS aggregate mini bid that I think, Ron, you had been, we missed the boat on it, but we went back to OGS and said, is there still room? And they said, yeah, not everybody took advantage of it. So there were still a couple of vehicles that were available. So we were able to get a couple of those, and they've been a huge hit with our senior department, our senior nutrition program. The seniors love it, people driving it love it, and we're able to plug them in. And we, again, did the lease to purchase. So we ended up getting an additional, there was a $4,000 pass through to, from the federal tax credit of $7,500. So the leasing company got some of it, but we ended up benefiting from, no, I'm sorry, another $2,500 or $3,000. So ultimately, the $40,000 minivan was costing us about $34,000, and that's including with the interest payments. And finally, I just
we're going to talk about this next. No. We're going to let Chris go on the municipal.
Okay, well then, because I want to do that. I have a link to the little video.
Oh, let her finish up.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Next slide. Go to the next slide. We'll talk about this at the end.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Can you click on that because I want you guys.
Yeah, that'd be great if this works. It'd be awesome.
If it works, yeah.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
All right. Uh-oh. No sound. Volume.
Yeah, no volume, no sound.
What?
I can hear you. You can't hear him?
It looks pretty persuasive, though, I can tell you that.
You guys can't hear him?
No.
Okay, well, anyway, you guys can go to the Town of Ossining, our YouTube site, and listen to him. Basically, what he is saying is that he bought his car. He lives nearby, and when he saw the charging station going, he needed a new car, and he bought a car that he knew that he could charge because the charging station was there. So what to me is so exciting about that is that we're actually driving demand for electric vehicles by putting charging stations in places where people can use them. That's it.
If you build it, they will come.
That's right.
Wow, nice, beautiful.
And yes, that's right. Our future goals. We actually got a community development block grant to fund a 14-passenger bus for our senior nutrition program because our bus has died. And Ron has been working with us on that. We're trying to figure out what the best deal is. And since we still haven't gotten the county contract, when we do, we'll be able to go out either to bid or we're not exactly sure what, using some kind of bid situation to get a great deal on a 14-passenger with 2 wheelchair lifts little minibus that'll take our seniors around.
And look at us, 3 happy campers. Aren't they just great?
And that's my awesome staff, Maddie and Victoria, who really worked hard on getting all this stuff together. So they're very supportive.
Thank you, Dana. Anyone have questions for Dana at this point?
Well, the classic question is, what were your roadblocks or stumbling? Not roadblock because you did it, but what were your stumbling blocks? Was it, it seems part of our problems are always the electrical work that's got to go into it. We have a problem here with the county, and that the prevailing wage and the engineers and all this have got to be involved. It just drives up the cost. Did you have any of that issue, or do you?
We're in a little bit of. We didn't really have any issue with. We used our park staff to do all the trenching and stuff like that. And then we hired our annual bidders, which we share with the Village of Ossining, to do the electrical work. So I think then we took care of the prevailing wage requirements. But the other thing, some of the challenge for us is, where are we going to be charging all these vehicles? And our community center, which is a village-owned building, we would need to upgrade and put a charging station in there. We're trying to get them to add a public charging station, but also we need to upgrade the electrical. And I think where we landed is that we're going to share the cost to upgrade the electrical out to a point where we can also have some non-public charging stations where we can keep our vehicles plugged in overnight. And we're going to have to now think about taking turns, getting them charged overnight, because they may not all, as long as we sort of do it on a rotating basis, but our senior senior nutrition program staff is done at 3 o'clock. And when we might want them to be by the charging stations or plugged in or changed around is much later. So we're going to have to work out some of those details. I think that the other challenge that we're all up against, I don't know about you guys, is that, they always have to go back to the dealer to get work done on them. And our mechanics aren't really trained yet to deal with electric cars. And we have, one young mechanic who's interested and willing to learn. But I think that needs to be the next place where the state, gives us some incentive, is to teach our mechanics in our shops how to work on these vehicles so that they know what to do when there's a problem.
That's a good point. We have so many here at the county. Maybe we can help with that, because
that would be.
I don't know how, but we do have a lot, and they can't be sending them all out. They have to be working on them to some degree here, especially with our plug-in hybrids. We have tons of those, and the straight-up hybrids. We got a lot of those too. I don't know. I'm not a car guy, but I don't know what the maintenance involved there is. And then we're bringing on more and more electrics. Full electric.
I think that's great. Shared services, Peter.
There we go.
Yeah, in all seriousness, maybe that's something that can be considered for the 2020.
I'm making a note of it.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely, Dana's absolutely right that's something that we're going to have to take a look at, because, and Peter, I think you're right that you need to identify what are the stumbling blocks and how do you address them, and maybe we can get ahead of some of this stuff.
Yeah, Ron.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You're taking notes too, I know. Yeah.
No, I am. Part of the challenge is, from my perspective, is first, is getting all you guys to agree what the needs are, and it's great to see, and right now, especially all you folks stepping up, because you're the real leadership, and then getting the other municipalities that are part of Sustainable Westchester to take it on. We're going to have a conversation about that a little later, and then being able to fund it all, right? So, the good part is the state has some funding mechanisms. I think the great part now is we've got a county government that's willing to do shared services and put some stuff on the plate, and I think that's a really great place to be, you guys. I think it's a great.
Maybe elevating this to the state. So we got the charging stations, we've got the level 2, we're working on level 3, we're working on connectivity, and the next step now is maintenance. Setting up, a couple of years of a program where staff can go in and for a minimal cost, take some classes, in group, in mass somehow.
Yep.
Like no cost. How about no cost?
Yeah, there you go. No cost, no cost. That's what we want, right? Yeah, no, that's it.
If you want, we want to train these guys. So I mean, if the state has, has any people working for them, then share the knowledge, share the wealth.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's a big takeaway here.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. This is fantastic. Okay, so we just heard from Dana Levenburg, the Ossining Town Supervisor, who purchased a Nissan Leaf, the S trim, which is the basic model trim, for a first-year payment that was covered by the ZEV $5,000 grant, which means that she had a zero first-year fiscal impact, and then she used that same financing structure because the leasing company was going to pass along part of the federal tax credits, and did that model like 3 or 4 times with the leasing company to be able to reduce her total out-of-pocket costs and gain some of the benefits of the federal tax credit through a lease structure. Now we're going to hear from our wonderful Bedford Town Supervisor, also wonderful, Chris Burdick, about his 2 Nissan Leafs, which were a little different trim, right, Chris? And what did you guys do? And do you want me to pull up your detail piece? Because you got a net cost that was pretty cool, if I recall.
What we're going to do, actually, if I could, before we get there, you can leave this one up. But I'd like to dial back, actually, a few years where what the town of Bedford did a number of years back, and I think it was 7 or 8 years ago now, where working with our then energy czar, Mark Thielking, he had worked out a deal with ChargePoint and also with Nissan, where we were able to get 2 Nissan Leafs, and I forget what model year it was, but it was a while ago. It was one of the early versions of the Nissan Leaf. And then we also got charging stations from ChargePoint, and we were guinea pigs, to tell you the truth. And we had some of those issues that Dana had experienced. We had given the 2 Nissan Leafs to our parking enforcement. And I have to tell you that it took a little time to overcome some of the buyer's remorse after we had to have Nissan Leafs being towed during the middle of winter because our parking enforcement wasn't quite aware that you turn on the heat and that's going to reduce your range.
Yeah.
Well, we've come a long way since then. And both Nissan Leafs and the entire technology for the industry has made great leaps forward, so that instead of looking at range that I think around then was probably 80 to 100 miles, it was practically nothing. We're looking at Leafs now that are in the high 160s, 170s. I think that our Chevy Bolt is in the 200s. And so we benefit from that. We benefit from recognition from the manufacturers that they need to step up to the plate to help both in retail as well as municipal fleets be able to address those issues. So we did a number of things. Before we purchased those 2 Nissan Leafs earlier this year, we actually realized that those charging stations that we got 7 or 8 years ago, we had problems with them. Some of them were working, some of them were not working. And the town made a significant investment in replacing all of our charging stations with new ChargePoint stations, state-of-the-art, and package deal that included 5 years of service on it. And we spent over $100,000 to put in new charging stations throughout the town. I venture to guess that we probably have the most number of municipal charging stations per capita in the state. We have 7 charging stations. We have 1 for each of our 3 hamlet parks. We have 1 for each of our 2 commuter lots. We have 1 at the town offices here at 321 Bedford Road and 1 across the street. And we're looking at others as well, because I think the point is correct, Dana, that you put them and people are going to start saying, what's that? Can I use it? And we see that happening. We want to do everything we can to encourage the public to do this. because they have to know that, yeah, you can get a good purchase price, but how am I going to keep that on the road, keep running, so I don't have to have range anxiety, which is the term used these days when you're getting close to running out of the mileage. And so we've been working hard to try to overcome those issues. So what we did then is that last year we got onto a purchase of a Chevy Bolt, and Ron, we thank you for making that possible. That was actually by piggybacking a contract with the city of New York, as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened when we said, hey, we really like these Chevy Bolts, it turned out that the supply had kind of dried up on that. So then we turned our attention to Nissan Leafs, and we said, you know, what can we do there? And now you can bring up that PDF, and I can go through what the numbers were on it. You know, whether you can enlarge that a little bit, or that might be something that you can see that we were looking at the county contract for the 2018 Nissan Leaf, which is the S model. And so we went to Nissan Leaf of New Rochelle, and thanks to Ron's work with us on that, you can see that we were able to get a deal with them that beat the county contract rate, which under, you know, one of the things that we certainly needed to do is we wanted to make sure that we were compliant with the state bidding requirements as well as with our own procurement policy. And that is certainly one thing that for those municipalities that are looking at that, you can take some comfort in that by doing it this way, whether it's the way that Ossining did it with the lease to purchase, or what we did with the outright purchase, we meet both the state bidding requirements as well as our own procurement policy. And so you can see that we made out pretty well, that not only did we get the Nissan Leafs for less than the county contract rate, but we also got the next higher level, which included having the GPS. And we also got thrown in, if you scroll down a little bit on that, Ron, you'll see that we had put into it a charging station at no additional cost. So we ended up getting 2 Nissan Leafs plus a charging station for $46,000. So that's going to come back to, I think, that what in your slides that you had, Ron, where New York City came to the conclusion that electric vehicles are the cheapest for the fleet. And that's absolutely the case here, is that we're always keeping our eye on the bottom line to see what is this doing for the taxpayer. What it's doing for the taxpayer is that we are saving money for the taxpayer in terms of being able to provide light-duty passenger vehicles at less than the cost of purchase, as well as less than the cost of operation of the internal combustion engine counterparts. So we have been absolutely delighted with how this has been working out for our municipality. And, you know, so much so that I decided individually that I said, you know, maybe I ought to take a look at it for me personally. I tend to be one of these people who's really cheap. I had a Honda Civic that was getting long in the tooth. It was 10 years old, and it had over 150,000 miles on it. And, you know, maybe I could have got another 50,000 miles on it. But I said, you know, I ought to be trying to set an example that here I am asking the community to go out there, take a hard look at it. If you're a family that has 2 cars, as Ron said time and again, you ought to take a look at that second car. Are you using that second car primarily for local driving? Because most families, that's the way it works out. And I purchased then the Nissan Leaf. You'll see there on this slide, in late February, went to Nissan of New Rochelle and got the mid-range trim level so that I could have GPS. And you'll see here what the numbers are. It's really quite attractive, continues to be. And one of the things that people have to realize is that those discounts that you see up there, they're instantaneous for those first two, the $5,000 and the $2,000. You get that right off the sticker price. And so that's immediate reduction in what you're going to pay when you go to the dealership. In addition, it's a federal tax credit. And some people say, well, what's a federal tax credit? Well, that's a dollar for dollar reduction in your tax bill. It's a whole lot stronger and more favorable than a deductible, and to have that included in your itemized deductions. So if you have, say, a $10,000 federal tax bill, then that becomes $2,500 with a vehicle that can give you the federal tax credit. So this is something that I personally have found to be a great benefit. It's wonderful to pass a gas station and say I don't need to stop there. It's wonderful when I don't need to change the oil, when the maintenance on this is so small and so infrequent. I do share some of the concerns that Dana mentioned in terms of, gee, I need to go down to New Rochelle in order to have this serviced. That offset, at least in part, by the fact that the frequency of servicing is much less with any, depending upon how many miles you put on. You know, I tend to have to take our other vehicle in once every 3 months minimum. If it's only for an oil change, I have to take it in just for that. And so it's really more like twice a year at the most for my electric vehicle. You know, rotate the tires and check the systems. And as you can see, you know, they now are providing a lot of backup in terms of problems that could arise. You know, the 2 years free towing, the free charging, a charging station at home. And I can tell you what I do here is that I have what they call the trickle charge, which can go into a 120 line, 110 line. You do not need to have a 220 line. So if you have a garage, or run it through the window, which is what I do actually. And the minute I get home, you know, I hook it up and it's all charged up by the morning. And we also have a charging station here at Town Hall, and I pay $1.50 an hour if I need to use that, and that can top it off, and that's a faster charger. We also have, as I indicated, charging stations all throughout town, and so I think that, you know, we are trying to make this for the municipality as well as for our residents as user-friendly and as attractive as we possibly can. And I have been extremely satisfied with the results. And I don't want to see those discounts go away. Let's keep them coming so that we can sell a lot more of these. So that's been my experience with it.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. That was excellent. And on the personal front, Dana, you went a different route. So let's just hear from you. And then I do want to have a conversation because it gets into these dealers and who's doing what, et cetera. But Dana, why don't you tell us what happened with you and why you chose the Hyundai Kona?
Okay, so I had been driving a Prius hybrid, and I love my Toyota, and it had taken me 240,000 miles since 2006, and it needed, I don't know, they said it was a hybrid pump, and it needed new brakes, and we were already $1,200 into the fix without them knowing if it might also need a new transmission. So I thought long and hard about saving it and decided, okay, it's time to bite the bullet and buy a new car. And I was looking around and I looked at the Leaf and I knew that, you know, of all the great benefits, and I liked it. I had actually recently been driving the town Leaf, and it was like, I don't know what was wrong with it, but it was just kind of chugging along. It could barely make it up the hill. So it wasn't like resonating with me as like the car I for my own car. But the other thing is I started looking at all the automotive magazines, and they were really hot on the Hyundai. Plus, it had a 258-mile range. So we went and test drove it, and it was really peppy, and it was a great car. We did also test drive the Leaf, and I have to say I really liked it when I test drove the I actually think it was a 2018. And that was one of the issues. It was who had what on the lot. We had to buy it by July 1st so that we could take advantage of the $7,500 tax credit, federal tax credit, because it was going away. So we were rushing around and trying to figure this out. Well, the Kona also had a lifetime warranty on the battery. And the Leaf has, I think, an 8-year warranty, which is still really a good long, or 8 years or 100,000 miles maybe.
Yep.
So we started out, actually, I forgot to say, we started out looking at the Hyundai Ioniq because I thought the range was the same on the Ioniq as it was on the Kona. And we were just about to do the deal, and our dealer said, no, the Ioniq only has 150-mile range. We actually loved it. It was exactly like the Prius inside, and it had more room, in fact, than that little mini SUV, but it just didn't have the range, and we were scared since it was really, we have other cars, but they're also in sorry shape. So this was going to be our main vehicle, and obviously we drive our cars a lot since we had 240,000 miles on the high road. So anyway, we went to, we talked to Hyundai, and I don't know where that $46,000. I didn't pay.
That's what they got up on their website, so that's all. I just took it right off of them. So yeah, I figured you did better than that. And one of the things we want to talk about is
yeah, I started at 38, and I wish I was just looking on my phone to see if I had the final contract in place, but I think we were down to 38, 37. They kept kind of knocking it down, and we did, end up financing it. What we also did is I just added a charger. I mean, it was the same kind of thing as Chris. Like, I'd come home, I'd just plug it in and make sure it was like popped off for the next day. It does take a long time to get to that full charge, but I can tell you that when I hit all of the buttons, like you can get it to go Eco and then Eco Plus. And if I have it on Eco Plus, it tells me on full charge. The first time I had it on Eco Plus, it told me that the range was 319 miles.
Wow.
Per charge. Now, I've kind of been watching that as compared to the mileage that I'm driving, and I don't think that it's real, but it makes you feel good. And I don't think I've been in a situation where I thought I was going to have to be towed anytime soon. I just went out to Long Island to visit some family at the beach, and I was like, what am I going to do when I get out there? I knew I was going to be able to make it back. It was only like 90 miles, and I could make it there and back. Sure enough, at the local Stop and Shop, they had a DC fast charger. It was a charge point, and I got there, and it was free, because they were free.
Wow.
They wanted to shop there.
And it was like 2 miles away. So I drove there and then went for a nice. Oh, actually, I take it back. It was 3.7 miles, and I know that because my sister and I decided to go for a run on the way back. So we ran back and then drove back later, and I was like, oh, I'm feeling guilty. We didn't shop at Stop and Shop. Well, it turned out we need some food. So then we went and shopped at Stop and Shop, and they benefited more than that $1.50 an hour or whatever. What I have been thinking a lot about now that I sort of understand the charging and how much charge I get and how many miles I get, I have been thinking about what is the comparable that we're charging as a municipality. I think we give the first 3 hours free on a level 2, and then we charge $5. We're basically charging for parking, essentially. We're saying we don't want you taking up this parking space because somebody else could have it. But if it only gets you a certain number of miles for that $1.50 or $5 or whatever it is you're charging, suddenly you're paying more for your electric charge than you are for your gas. I don't know. I think that we need to start thinking about how many miles you're getting with the charge versus how much you would get for the gas and try to knock it down a little bit. So I don't know.
And then there's the public-private partnership idea where you have someone like Stop and Shop or ShopRite, whoever it was there, that basically attracted your business by having the free charging, right?
Right.
So,
absolutely.
And you had the guy who went to you because you had a charging station, so he got it.
Well, that's right. And for example, we have Diamond Properties that's just over the line in Mount Kisco.
Right.
And at the Sawmill Club East that I go to in the morning, there are 2 free, use charging stations that Diamond Properties put in. They're not the supercharger, but they're faster than my trickle charge, the ones that take a long time. And it's great. You know, it makes me want to go back there more frequently. And so there's no question that we have been trying to work with our mall and shopping center operators to say, hey, look, would you consider this? We did talk to the folks at Tesla. Tesla, however, was interested in getting a whole bank of 5 or 6 different charging stations in prime spaces in our commuter lots, and we just didn't feel that we could do that. Those commuter lots, and I'm sure that you can appreciate this, Dana, you know, they're just too important to us that we have waiting lists for those among our residents, and I couldn't go giving up those slots so close to the train station. But we're working on that. We're seeing what we can do in partnering with our businesses to get more charging stations there. We're seeing whether we can get a grant for the Katona Museum of Art to see whether they can get a charging station in there. Because they approached me about that. So you're right. We need to get them all over the place. And I think that goes back to Peter's point about, you know, what are the obstacles? How do you make this more attractive to a municipality as well as to the residents?
Dana, for the one that you went to that was Stop and Shop, grocery store, was there advertising based around that? Was there like a big screen that, you know, was advertising?
It's all because, you know, it's on your app, right? So if I have the ChargePoint app on my phone, it's in my car. I hit the EV on the car, and I'm like, okay, where are the charging stations near me? And there it is at the Stop and Shop. It's free. It's a DC fast charger, so I can go over there. Even if I leave the car for 2 hours, I'm going to get a lot more charge out of that. And I did hear that you're not supposed to use the fast chargers all the time. It degrades the battery. I don't know if that's true or not. But
you mean the superchargers or the
DC fast chargers? There is some
level 2
discussion about it. The level 3s, the ones that are
the level 3s. Yeah, I heard that as well.
So yeah, I mean, you don't want to do it all the time, but you know, you can do it once a day. Is kind of the recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, if you're there for like, you know, again, if I went there for 3 hours and I had like a full charge in 3 hours, I think, because I hadn't driven the car that much. So, I mean, that was great. And actually here in Ossining, we, at the Arcadian Shopping Center, we have a whole bank of Teslas and then an EV Go bank also. So, and I think the EV Go is level 2. So Tesla came into the Stop and Shop. And or not the Stop and Shop, the Arcadian Shopping Center. So it's a mall, and there's a bunch of different things there, and you can find it if you're a Tesla driver. Everybody sees them, so you don't have to put a big advertising out there, Peter. And then the people who drive their electric cars know where to go, and they're going to go there. They're going to buy they're going to go to the liquor store and get their nails done, and a whole lot of things, and get their pizza, and then go do a little shopping at the Stop and Shop too.
Just real quick, Peter. So I just want to get through a few things, and we'll come back because we're getting close on time. So first, don't forget about Con Ed. You can they'll pay you to charge off peak up to $500 in the first year. Guys, anybody that's looking at these programs, there's now 40 different cars, right? So you heard some of the experience, and this is the website, and you just basically go there, and it's got the whole list and what the range is and what the manufacturer's MSRP is, the fuel economy, the tax credits, the state rebates.
That's good.
And then the real thing I'd like to have a conversation about a little bit with you guys, if we can, is getting these more dealers, right? We've got 3 dealers on the Drive Green Westchester site. One of them, the Toyota guys, don't even have the Prime on. So this month they're not even on because they didn't have them in stock. So take a look. These are the dealers in Westchester or that have sold to Westchester residents, right? So these are, some of them are outside of the county, but a lot of them are in the county. And one of the things I'd really like to have a conversation about is how do we get these dealers to start paying attention? How do we reach the public? How do we get them involved so that, the strategy that we initially put out was get the municipalities to lead by example. So you guys start to do your municipal fleets. Coordinate charging infrastructure, so we start having charging infrastructure all over the place. Push that an EV in every garage so that, basically if you got 2 cars, one should be electric, and then start to look at the heavy duty stuff too. I really, Peter, you had something to say. I didn't want to interrupt you. Please jump in. But I'd like to have a discussion. Is this the right strategy, do you guys think? Or what is the right strategy that's going to make this hit to the next level? So, Peter, you had something to say? Please.
No, it was around specifically that we had entertained a vendor that was going to come in and put free charging stations, and it had a big advertising screen. And I just wondered if that was one of the vendors that was used there. But it was
I understand what you're saying. No, there was no big advertising screen. Absolutely not. It was charged.
I thought it was a good business model. You know, they get the revenue, advertising revenue. They give you a free charger and free charging. So it was good. Do you want me to talk about what the county's doing yet, or? Well,
yeah, and then so Peter, this was, as you recall, this was a 2005 baseline. I know you're working with the Crisis Task Force. These are some of the deals that are out there from the county contracts that people can hop on top of. Sometimes you can do better, but these are the public deals, et cetera. But in the time we've got, look, these are the charging stations that are throughout the county. We know that Mamaronec's now putting 8 more in. Peaceville's doing some. Mount Pleasant, Town of Rye, Croton on Hudson. If you've got other charging stations, let us know. I know the county's got a bunch going on. We want to get more charging stations out there so that we take this 186 and we make it everywhere that people go. By the way, anybody, public or private, there is still a state grant right now, $4,000 per port, $8,000 for 2 port. It's not as good as the one that the municipalities can get with the ZEV program. This one you pay and then you wait for the rebate, as opposed to some of the other ones were out there. The ZEV grants still haven't come out yet, but everyone should be aware that they're any day, they say, we're going to come out for another round of $16,000 per 2-port charger, which is what Ossining and Bedford and a bunch of other folks were able to take advantage of. Round 3 is about to come out, and we want to focus in on high-speed DC fast chargers because that's going to be the way to go. NYPA has a program now that's out on the street, not just for the corridors, which is what most people have heard about, but John Markovitz is the guy, if you want to speak to about the NYPA programs, where they have the ability to work with municipalities. But in the time we've got, I'd really like to just hear really quickly, the VW settlement is coming up. I mean, there's so many things going on. But guys, my question to you is, for all our remaining municipalities, you guys have been the leaders. We've got a lot going on. We're looking to deal with this climate crisis. Is this the way to go? Is this the right strategy? Continue to work with the municipal fleets, coordinate charging stations, push for everybody who's got 2 cars to have 1 in every garage and start to look at heavy-duty electric vehicles? Or what do you guys think? Because the dealers still aren't here. We don't have them all. They're not coming in. Even the one that Dana deals with, you went and bought a car. He still won't come into the program. So I need some help from you guys. We all need to come together and figure out what to do. And I'm hoping that we can do that maybe in the fall, like October, we can bring everybody together. But what's your thoughts in the time we got remaining? We got 2 minutes. So in summary, let's go Dana, Chris, Peter, and then anything from the peanut gallery too. Any comments or thoughts? So Dana, what's your thought on what we need to do?
As far as municipal fleets, it's a mindset change because you mostly got a whole lot of guys who like gas and they like power. So I think, that's always like, I just think you have to look at what your needs are and see if there's a way that you can fulfill the transformation. And I do think that the other thing that we really do have to add to this is training for our mechanics. That's I think if we can get the mechanics on board, oftentimes the mechanics are driving the decisions about fleets, then I think you can start changing culture.
Yeah, I think Ron and I will work on that. That's our takeaway, Ron. I think that's a good thing to work on.
I agree.
That's an important component, and I think we could add something there from the county's perspective.
That'd be great. So,
but I think that's right.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You want to. I think Dana is absolutely right. You have to change the mindset. You have to let people know that this will work. That they're not going to get towed. They don't have to worry about that. And when you have your people who are using them are able to say, hey, maybe 7 years ago the technology really wasn't there yet, but it is now, and I really like my electric vehicle, then you're going to have people sign on and say, it's like the same thing with electric leaf blowers. You have to change people's attitudes toward it to show that, it really does work and it's something that they can embrace.
Peter, last word?
And leading by example is a big component of that. You know, what you guys are doing. You know, what Tom Roach is doing, you know, in White Plains, you know. So what the county is doing and making this more visible as much as possible. I think we should work towards maybe another one of those conferences like we had, was it a year and a half ago or so, Ron? You know, bringing this kind of, I mean, it all comes down to this advocacy and education and, you know.
That's why I think a coordinated strategy, bringing everyone, getting you guys all in the same room, having you say, you know what, this is what we're doing as Westchester, as a community, as individual municipalities. I think that's key. But you know, I need to hear from you guys because you know it's all about you, right? So, and Pelham, you have anything to say?
Excuse me. I really like the idea of coordinated strategy. I think that's important. And I did have a couple of questions, but I'll just put them in via email just in the interest of saving time.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're out of time. We could stay for a few minutes if you guys want. I mean, I'm fine if you guys are okay.
I'm fine with that. Sure.
Well, you know.
Okay, so go ahead then, please.
What I prefer to do is I'm going to present what you just presented to me to the group that's interested in this, and I'll get a collected question sheet and put it forward that way, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I was curious about is there any opportunity for economies of scale with respect to purchase, acquisition, or what have you, if let's say like the lower Westchester communities all aggregated in order?
Yep.
If that were able to be done, like, do you think there's
Yes,
value in
absolutely.
that?
So just to let you know how this whole thing started was our first thing is we went to the municipalities and we had a few that came together that wanted to do purchases. And that's how we were able to negotiate with Nissan for the first wave of discounts. And that's what we really want to do is, you know, the more buyers that we can get together, that's the aggregation strategy, the better the prices we can get, the deeper the discount.
Okay.
So that's exactly what we want to do. You're completely right. We started with municipalities. We wound up with a couple of challenges with municipalities from the purchasing and the timing and everything like that. But we were able to bring it to Nissan with the whole aggregated community choice aggregation program and the whole sustainable Westchester, reaching 1 million people through our municipalities and our members. That really had an impact on them. We haven't seen the bulk purchase in a way that we need to do it, I believe.
Yeah.
We really need
bulk is the way to go. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, we need the bulk purchase, you know, and what we need to do though, is to have everyone say, you know, I think each of you to say, look, this is what I need to do over the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. These are my goals. This is what I'm going to purchase for my fleet, and then get people to hop on that. So there is a coordinated piece, but I think you're absolutely right. Bulk strategy makes a lot of sense.
I did want to say one thing about what we have planned as a county. I got a lot of things I could talk about, but the one I did want to say is we are creating a rolling stock committee, something that Ron and I have talked about for a long time, and so we're working with the commissioner of our budget, you know, our finance, Deputy Commissioner Bud Nicoletti. So we brought a committee together to make sure that all purchases, even though there is an act on the book that was passed, people are going outside of that. So we're making sure that all purchases trickle through this transportation committee to make sure that we're, you know, moving towards and setting up a plan, just like you're talking about there, Mark. You know, setting up a scheduled plan, and we're going to be buying more and more and more. It just works for the Westchester, for the county at least. And I did have a great experience with the Bolt. I had borrowed one for the Clearwater Festival weekend. I was going back and forth from one corner to the other. I used a trickle charge. I barely got anything out of it, quite frankly, but I used it extensively. Didn't have any problem with it all weekend, going from the one corner of the county all the way to the other, and brought it back to the shop on Monday morning and still had at least half. They're saying, you know, I was getting a 275 on that Bolt. I mean, that thing is amazing.
Wow, that's
nice.
An
amazing car.
Yeah,
I know it's a little more expensive, but it is something else.
Yeah, and you will see during the summer you get a lot more miles. So Dana, your piece is probably right during the summer. It's going to drop off during the winter when it gets colder. But you know, I mean, if you're doing like an average person, 98% of our trips are less than 50 miles.
Right.
For those trips, boy, it's just perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there's a lot of different components to the overall value of the vehicle. Price is one, obviously, but use durability, and there's a bunch of different variables. I think that a lot of different people would have different value points for that. Like some people want reliability, some people just want low cost, some people want long duration of charge. And what I was wondering is, I was just wondering what you guys think. We just recently brought in a full-time young tech guy, and I'm wondering if there may be value in asking him to put together a kind of like maybe like a spreadsheet type of like an input program or file that can be utilized like throughout the county, like a shared file. I'm just going to ask him if that's doable. How hard is it? And see if maybe there's some value in putting together something like that can be accessed like throughout like,
I gotta go.
Southern Westchester or whatever. Sorry, go ahead.
That would be great, Mark. That would be great.
See you guys. Sorry.
All right, everybody. Any last words for anyone else?
I was going to say, Mark, just make sure you coordinate with Ron, because he's done a lot of that kind of stuff, and
okay,
don't want to duplicate it, or it would be great to augment whatever Ron has done, but he's done a lot of that kind of.
Yeah, but Mark, it's always great to have new eyes and new energy and new blood, and and this is a learning process for all of us. So absolutely, I think it'd be great. Love to talk to you and your tech about it. So.
Okay, I'll put something together, present it, then I'll let you know what my findings are, and I think this is the way forward. So.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, everybody. You guys are fantastic. Have a great day. Wonderful.
You too. Take care.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, guys.
You're the best, buddy.
Yeah, you're the best, man. Talk to you soon.
You're my role model.
Yeah. Vice versa, bud.
Peace.
All right, man. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it.
Have a good one, Pete.